And welcome back to another episode of Psychic Evolution. I'm Jamie Clark.
And I'm Maggie Clark, and this is the podcast where you discover the psychic potential within to empower yourself and manifest your psychic and mediumship gifts. And today we have a little bit of a Q&A here because we do monthly training sessions the second Monday of every month. And so a lot of times we get these wonderful questions to help people really hone, tune, and develop their psychic gifts. So this episode is dedicated to two questions. The first question is, how do you tell the difference between a female and a male energy in spirit when you're doing a psychic reading? How do you know if it's a female or male with someone from the other side coming through? And then the other question is, how can you tell when you're doing a reading and you're connecting, is this about someone living or someone who has graduated and already on the other side? So we're going to break this down into two parts. And the first question we're going to start with is, how do you tell a difference between female energy and male energy? Now, first and foremost, if you're new to this podcast, if you're new to psychic and mediumship development, I'll encourage you to listen to Season 5, Episode 21, all about psychic safety. We also have another episode in Season 1, Safety Rules and Regs. This episode is regulations, and this is what we're talking about when we're talking about regulations with our psychic and mediumship gifts. It's how do we form this? How do we get familiar with these regulations? How do we set them in place? How do we ask our spirit team to help? So this episode is going to give you some tips and tricks, all on how to develop your regulations. So Jamie, why don't you share with us, because you've been doing mediumship a long time. So when someone comes forth from the other side, how do you tell the difference between a male and a female energy?
Very good. And in that, they want to set us up for success, meaning they're going to try to make us as accurate as possible. Now, for me, those who know me know some of my rules and regs are, when your people come through, I'm usually pretty good about going for male or female, but sometimes if a female coming through has a strong energy, I'll go for a male. If a male has soft and more contemplative, I'll go for a female. Now, for me, that works beautifully because over the years, I have found when they bring their soul prints through, I'm usually accurate with male or female, but there are also times when, if it's, in this case, I got a strong energy and I was going for a male, and then we started getting information and it was a female, but she had a very strong energy and did not take, whatever. So there's those types that I've learned that the way that they feel to me, it will either be strong or soft. It is whatever rules and regs you want to do, however you want to read it, because the more, as we've talked about, the more that you have it sitting there so that they can read the rules and regs, the more effective they can become to go, oh, that's how they'll receive it. Okay, then I'll show them this way, or I'll make them feel this way. It is a very beautiful teamwork effort. And the more that we have our own parameters, our own rules and regs of whatever works for us, the more effectively they can come through and work with those dynamics to make it more precision, more correct, and more accurate.
So is this something, besides just feeling the energy, is this something that you ask the other side to kind of push that energy a little bit forward so you can feel it more?
Yes. And again, it's many different aspects. If you want to keep it simple, put just two different tags, one male, one female, or the word male or female, and then have whoever's coming through choose one of those to put into your mind sight and then start to work with that. That'll become a little bit easier. For me, that's why I'm saying it's the feeling thing, is because I'm usually very good about getting those personalities and those characteristics. So when they come through for the masculine and feminine as we perceive it, I've learned that a lot of those qualities and characteristics are part of the energy read that I was getting of the strength or the soft and contemplativeness. Those kind of connections are powerful. And the good question is you're asking for it. The great thing is they want us to be as informative as possible. So they will give us as much information as sometimes we can comprehend or that we can just share. Because those, I always say, it's not about you. If you get it, you give it. That's it. Just the information. And when they can get that solidness to go, not only is it the correct information, but in this case, it was a male or a female, and became easy for you because I saw that those tags were there and I'm a male. So boink, I pushed on the male energy and you said it, because it could be one or the other, but you got it and that was correct. And so they'll become, our loved ones on the other side will become more comfortable in the way that they come through to you, because now they're starting to get the interactions of connection. And when they can find your own rules and regs, because again, as many worlds as there are perceivers, no one's the same physically, they're not going to be the same metaphysically. Giving them as much information and potential to communicate as possible. And if we only have one way to do it, then perfect. Start with that. It is whatever works for you. You as the medium are the one who's receiving the information, and also more than likely one who has to share the information. The more trusting you are and the more teamwork you have with the other side and your own team, your own spiritual team, the more comfortable you can become to, for me, I'm like, it's just the information. Here you go. I love you. And here's the information. And when they can go, yeah, but there's no way you could know that. I'm like, yeah, except we know it. And so when the other side is usually very accurate to give me personalities and characteristics and dynamics that no one else sometimes has even known about, that the person I'm reading for, they have no choice but to go, there's no way, because nobody else knew that except myself. And I'm like, right, except who's giving it to us. So basically, I have fun with it, but it is your loved ones who will give us the information the most accurate as possible. Our job is to, how do we want to receive the information and in what way? Do we want it to be symbols, male or female? Do we want it to be the energy vibe of how they feel, masculine or feminine? Whatever works for you. And you can blend them all together the more that you work with it. But let's start with one thing that feels comfortable to start with and then build from there.
And think of these regulations as a billboard. When the other side is wanting to connect, or if you're doing a psychic reading, you have a billboard out there in your psychic ethers, right? Saying, hey, this is how I would like to receive information, or what I would like to develop with my psychic abilities. And then once you have that on your billboard, your spirit team, everyone who wants to actually connect, whether through a psychic read or mediumship, they'll read this billboard. They'll be like, oh, I've got it. This is how you would like to receive it. And then they'll follow suit. And so again, a lot of this is practice. And then we also have to remember that the soul is androgynous. So as a soul print of consciousness, there is no male or female. And so sometimes that makes it a little bit like, what am I feeling here? You know, a lot of times I feel like with the angelic realm, they feel so androgynous to me. Like I don't feel male and female strongly. They do usually present themselves as one or the other, but they are androgynous. And so it's also, how are they presenting themselves? Another technique or regulation that you could put in place is say, oh, please show me long hair for female and short hair for male. Now, that's not always the case. Women have short hair, men, we all, right, we can have any hairstyle we want. But this could be what you're using as a calling card. So when we use the phrase calling card, it is what they will present themselves as, so that we have a relationship to understand whether it's male or female. So you have to be a little bit careful, right? Because if they show long hair, she might not have had long hair in this life, or in the lifetime that she lived. She might have had short hair. And so you have to kind of like be aware that whatever regulations you set in place, they're going to work with those regulations regardless of sometimes what they really looked like. So you do want to be cautious and aware when you're setting these regulations in place, and also know that you can change them at any time.
But being as accurate as possible, because like I always talk about, most people don't question the fact that in the mediumship, notice that almost all of the time when your loved ones come through, they come through as the person, the physical vehicle that they were in this particular lifetime that you were connected with them. To me, this is not the only life we've lived, and this is not the only vehicle we've been in, but they'll have the familiarity, because in this case, that person who's still on this side living, like the other side who's living, but will come through, they want to get as much information so that they can know that they are in a great place, they are great. And not only that, but the person that we're reading for knows that And then sometimes when we can get the information as accurate as possible, male and female and personalities and many other things, but it becomes a lot more evidential. It becomes a lot more validating that the person that you're reading for allows themselves to go, that's either really good guesswork or, something to it. It's like, right, question everything. But when they can get those personalities, and in this case, the male and female and many other dynamics, it becomes a lot more powerful.
Now, if you work with the tarot and you're working with tarot and mediumship together, some readers, and I'm just going to put this out there. I don't read this way typically, but this is something that you can work with and something that you can get really good information. Some readers will read the court cards in the tarot as male and female. The pages and the queens, or sometimes known as the princesses and the queens, are female, and the knights and the kings are male. Other times people will use the suits because earth and water are feminine elements and air and fire are masculine elements. So some readers will do like a one card draw and be like, okay, what did I get? And if it's a feminine element, then maybe they're going to go for the feminine. So it's something you can try and work with if you're using the tarot and see how it works for you.
That's great. Great tools and techniques. Notice we're sharing with what we do, how we use these tools and techniques. We just want to give you a reference, and you can certainly lovingly do it the way that we're sharing or make it your own. Whatever way feels good for you. Start with just one thing and work from there. That way it's not overwhelming. We want to give you step by step, take the wins and keep building from there. That way it's a little bit more effective and you're more able to kind of be open and listen, because there is accuracy, that there is validation that comes from these communications. And what a beautiful gift is to not only make the connections for yourself and your loved ones, but to maybe help others who aren't necessarily making their connection like they could. And that's when it becomes life-changing.
And then also in your daily life, really focus on what people's energy feels like, because this is where you're going to get the most practice, and it's everywhere. You walk into a grocery store, there's a male, there's a female. So you can ask your spirit team, hey, I really want to really feel what feminine energy feels like, and I want to feel what this masculine energy feels like. And as you walk into that grocery store and you look at someone, just feel their energy and ask your team to help you feel what feminine energy feels like. And then just do this for a while until you feel that energy strongly and you can feel the difference of what you're feeling. Because a lot of times we'll feel it, but we don't know what it is we're feeling. And so if you practice feeling the difference, it will become a lot easier to feel the difference as you move forward. And you want to use this in your everyday life as often as you can to develop, because we're constantly honing our gifts and honing our skills. And remember, these metaphysical senses that we have are so natural, they're supernatural.
And not only that, the feelings of the soul, that one feeling is worth 1,000 words and then some. That's why I say, for me, feelings are different than emotions. To me, emotions are happy and sad. Feelings are an acknowledgement of a particular emotion or dynamic or experience in life. On average, when people say something, they'll say it like this: I feel happy, or I feel angry. They don't go, I happy. It's an acknowledgement of, in this case, a potential emotional aspect of what they're feeling. And when we can start to feel our own life experience and then open up to others without being too sensitized and fearful, first we got to connect with ourselves. The more that I connected with myself, the more it was able for me to just open up and be free with the receiving of information. I did not lose myself to the process. I found myself within it. And knowing my own tools and techniques like we're giving with you, we just want to share what we do. And if you would put this to the test and get your validation, keep working with it and you'll build from there. It's teamwork. We want to help you to help yourself.
Now, so lots of ideas there. Practice, 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 and have fun with it. Now, part 2 to this question is, I am having difficulty telling the two apart between someone living and someone who's graduated already on the other side. Now, I've watched Jamie in several gallery readings throughout the years. And what I've noticed is sometimes from the other side, when they're making a connection to someone living, they point. They give him this, no, they're still here, and they're pointing down onto the earth, so to speak. And so I've seen him going, nope, they're pointing here. They're still alive. So this is probably what, part of your rules and regs?
Yeah, it is. But not only that, for the feelings of whether they're here or on the other side living, for myself in doing this, I know how this reality feels as a physical reality as we perceive it. And I've done it so much in my life to feel how the other side feels in a different vibrational energy, because it's pretty clear. I'll be able to usually be very effective, like, oh, okay. And a lot of times if there's a question connected to a person and both are still here, a lot of times I'll ask, okay, can I just have the first name of the person that you're wanting to find out about? And then they'll give me just the first name. And through that, we'll usually be very accurate to realize, one, they're physically still here, not on the other side. And when you can get that solid connection to, in this case, this dimension as we perceive it and still living here, you'll be able to kind of connect all the dots together in this dimension. That way you know what's the physical and what's the metaphysical. Again, it's just vibrational patterns of energy. I just know, learn how this reality feels, and then when you're tapping into other realities, it'll be very effective because there are many different levels of consciousness. Our ability is we got to traverse them all because we are that. And in our own way, starting with one modality, feeling the connection. When you're thinking about a person, and if they're still physically here, think about that person and them physically being here. You'll start to get an association of how this reality third dimension is with that person who's still here. And then, if you're open, take yourself to a loved one who's on the other side and vibe how that feels. You'll very quickly start to learn those patterns of feelings, the energy that is either this side or the other side.
And it's so interesting. Just last night, I got a visit from a client and I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, they crossed over. Wow. Oh my gosh. Right. I was like, no, I'm just worried about them. I'm going to see them in the morning. You know, maybe I'm just like trying to figure everything out. I've got a lot going on in my head. So I was second guessing the information. And then I woke up again with the same information, the same connection, the same feeling. And there is a difference, a different vibration from the other side, but it's very subtle at first. When you first start tapping into the other side, when you first start vibrating with what the other side feels like, it is very subtle because the soul print's the same. Their energy feels the same, whether they're here or there. And in our minds, we think we should feel different, you know, on the other side. And I'm sure it's a vastly different type of experience, but the soul is the same. The soul print energy is absolutely the same. So then sometimes we second guess, well, I don't know if it's here or there because it feels the same. And their soul print absolutely does feel the same. Their energy is still their energy. You don't change when you cross over. And so this is the subtleties of learning what the other side feels like and when you're making those connections and just tapping in. And again, this is a lot of practice. For someone like Jamie, who's born a psychic medium, this is a very natural gift. And he had the opportunity to really develop that from a young age and not, you know, shut it down. For some of us who are either reopening our gifts or exploring what's the potential for the first time, this is a lot of practice. And so every time you connect with someone on the other side, I would recommend taking this into your spiritual room. You know, maybe once a day saying, okay, maybe you have a grandma or a friend or someone really important to you on the other side, and just say, hey, every day I want to feel what the other side feels like when I'm just sitting here in a meditation in my spiritual room, making these connections with you. Let me feel this and just be with that feeling. You don't have to overthink it. It can just be a couple of moments, but say, okay, for the next 2 minutes or the next 5 minutes, just let me vibe with what it feels like and just allow yourself to just feel. And then if you do that every single day, then you can start bringing in, okay, let me, for the first 5 minutes, feel what it's like on the other side. And the next 5 minutes, feel what it's like here on this planet. Okay, for someone who's living. And so maybe start working with this consciously in your spiritual room in a meditative place, a meditative state where you're asking to feel the difference. And then just be open, because we're developing our psychic abilities. We're developing our ability to feel energy and different vibrational patterns of energy. So we want to be patient with this process, because our analytical minds are going to want to jump in, what we've been taught, what we've been trained, how to think, how to feel. All of this is going to go out the window eventually. We have to decondition to open up sometimes, but we don't know how. So instead of deconditioning right away, we are literally just saying, okay, I want to vibe it. Just let me feel it, let me vibe it, and then tune in. And it's so interesting. Everyone develops at different paces and different times and different rates, and there is no competition and there is no comparison. We all have this ability to do psychic reads and mediumship reads. It is part of just being human. We all have intuition, the sixth sense, the ability to feel these things. We just have to practice feeling them.
And that's why, as it gets complex, because there's a lot going on, but we want you to just choose one thing at a time. Just keep it real easy. That way you can build upon that as quickly as you would like to. But it's less distraction and more attraction for the one dynamic of what you're wanting to work with or learn about or feel. And just like Mag is saying, it is very simple. For me, if you have a loved one on the other side, target, connect with that loved one, and feel what it feels like to be there with them. It's a very unique energy. And then you can choose somebody here physically that's still in this dimension and feel how this reality as we perceive it feels with this person still physically here. Not only being able to get the difference in that way of this side or that side, it's going to give you more of an effective read as the information is coming through, because you're now starting to read on many different levels. That one connection can speak 1,000 words and then some.
So when you're forming your rules, when you're forming your regulations, get creative. But like Jamie said, start off simple. Start off with one thing and then build upon that and see what works for you. For some people, it's going to come really quickly. For others, it's just going to take a lot of practice. And so just be patient, be open. But again, make those connections. The more you can vibe it and practice, practice, practice. And if you want to join us in our monthly training sessions, we do practice psychic reads, practice mediumship reads. We bring in different techniques. We do a lot of Q&A. We also have our Psychic Evolution Mystery School, if you want to check that out as well, which has a little bit more deeper dive into some development techniques.
It's all about the love. You're not in this alone. We're doing this together.
And also work with your strengths. If one of your strengths is clairtangency, skin vision, where you feel things on your skin, you could say, oh, touch my right shoulder if you're a male, touch my left shoulder if you're a female, touch my right shoulder if you're here on Earth, my left shoulder if you're on the other side. You can do things like that. If you're working with a certain clair, like clairtangency, which is this ability, skin vision, we do have a podcast episode on that if you want to hear more about that and how to develop that. But if that's a strong thing for you, there you go. If clairaudience is strong for you, just say, I want to hear a yes, or I want to hear a male, or, whatever it might feel like. If clairvoyance is one of your strong suits, be like, okay, show me long hair, show me short hair, show me planet Earth, or show me heaven, whatever your interpretation of heaven might look like.
Look at the versatility you're giving people. That's exactly right. Keep it easy, keep it simple, but keep it consistent. The more that you get these patterns, the more you have a reference, the more you can work with it and become a lot more effective at communicating that information.
And then once you work with, what does this feel like in my spiritual realm? What does this feel like when I'm out in the world, male versus female? We can work with it in our everyday life, but then once we're in our spiritual room, then we can start playing with our clairs and saying, okay, maybe I see it. Maybe I'll hear it. Maybe I'll feel it. And then that's what you want to, and maybe I'll just know that clairsentience just kind of settles in. And so we want to, play around with these psychic gifts, play around with our different metaphysical senses to see how the information comes through and then what is working well for you. And practice, practice, practice. I know like a lot of times we don't have like a ton of friends are like, I want to practice. Do me, do me. Find communities where you can practice in your own spiritual room, your loved ones that are close to you here that love you dearly. Maybe they're up for a practice and you could say, okay, I want you to think of someone and I want to, and then I want to try to feel if this is male or female or on this side or the other side. And it's just practicing, just saying, okay, think of someone and just hold them in your mind sight and let me feel into it. And then start practicing with a partner or a friend. We also have the Psychic Evolution training cards that can help you work with this. In those training cards, we have a suit, so to speak, or there's 4 cards. One is a human, one is an angel, one is an extraterrestrial, and one is an elemental. So that can get you to feel the difference between those, but you can build out your own cards. Okay, is this here or the other side? Get creative, have fun, and if you have any other questions about the regulations that you have, throw them our way. We're happy to answer those in our podcast. But everyone's rules and regulations are very unique unto themselves. So you get to set the rules, you get to set the regulations, and if they're not working well for you, you can always change them. And then don't hesitate to ask your guides, do you have any suggestions of how I can receive this? And just be open. Some of us have that clear communication developing right now. Some of us are still working to get the messages more clearly. So have fun, practice, keep it light, have fun with your psychic evolution.